Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I am here with my friend Oren, who I've known since 2014. I was actually thinking about it. When did I meet Oren? And we met in LA. I had just come off of a reality show called Utopia, and he had a dinner at a place in Venice where he was living at the time. And I just, I felt really connected to him right when we met, and we've been in and out of touch over these years. And what I can say about your presence, Oren, is that it has always been rooted in unconditional love. I really feel your embodiment in that as friends, and also witnessing you in your current union with your beloved. And when I was thinking about the men that I wanted to have on this season of the podcast, and given the topic specifically around healing the man-woman relationship for greater union, I thought of you, and most specifically, the story that Chelsea, who is Oren's beloved, shared with me a few summers ago when we were on a boat in Ibiza. And we'll get into that. But today's topic is going to be about unconditional love, and also navigating that fine line of discernment of where we may fall into the trap of loving too much and abandoning ourselves and our needs and what we truly desire in relationship and in the way we relate. And I feel like this is a great conversation to have with Oren. So welcome, Oren. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share with everyone a little bit more about you, where you're at, what you're up to now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation with you. So my name is Oren Harris. My nickname is O. I'm a transformational speaker, a high performance coach, a creative catalyst, an artist to the core, and I love love. Like, I'm passionate and devoted to love. And yeah, I'm also an expert on flow states, peak performance states of consciousness. But I would say what ties everything together is my relationship to love and my relationship to God. And I feel like love is the master key to everything. And even though it's this intangible, can be very ethereal, feeling based, it's the key, it's the master key to everything, every dimension of our lives. And so I like to think I love people into their highest potential.
Yeah, you do it. And that actually brings me straight into what Chelsea shared when we were on the boat in Ibiza. And she was telling me how you basically did that for her. Like, you just loved her so unconditionally, when in the beginning of both of your relationship, she was possibly, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but it sounded like in a sabotage type of pattern where she like suddenly was like drinking a bottle of wine by herself and kind of, not doing things to maybe not be as present. And you never once said to her, like, why are you drinking? Or don't drink, or something that someone's partner might do. And I also have another friend couple who recently got married in Hawaii. And similarly, she did a similar thing at one point in her relationship. She was like smoking organic cigarettes. And her beloved never said to her ever, like, babe, why are you doing that? It's not good for you. Whereas, like, I know I personally have been guilty of, because I don't drink alcohol, like asking, or do substances, like even asking men that I've dated to be like, I don't engage in this way. So I would really love if you don't too, so we can be on the same frequency.
Right.
Whereas
I know the trap in that, because it can create resentment and then rebellion, or thinking like you want to change someone, even though it's someone's highest good, right? Um,
Mhm.
so I would love to go just in first into that. Like, let's just talk about that first, of loving someone into their highest potential.
Yeah. The thing about love, like love as a space and love as a catalyst for awakening someone's highest potential, is that it's profoundly simple, and at the same time, it's a journey, and simply because like the field, like love itself is infinitely intelligent, right? Far beyond our own capacity of our own knowledge, wisdom, and intelligence. Love is supremely intelligent to the nth degree. It's miraculous. And so love as a transformational force, like in relationships, as it moves through a being, the reason I said that it's profoundly simple but can be very, very complex is because, in relationship, it's like it's our person or somebody that we care about. So we feel this care in our heart, and perhaps we know what they're capable of. We even know, um, you know what's best for them or what they desire for themselves. And it's a fine line, is the only way I know how to put it into language, of like discernment. Like, when should I say something or not? Should I not say something? What can I say or what shouldn't I say? How should I say it? So that's the complex part, right? It's like, okay, this person is in a need, or they're suffering, or they're having a challenge, or they have a big desire. I feel the care in my heart. I feel the love in my heart. I feel the service in my heart that wants to empower this person, to help this person. What do I do? I've got my whole arsenal. I've got my personal spiritual development toolkit. I've got my certifications. I got my processes. I've got my energy. You have this arsenal of things at our disposal to fulfill the service of love in our heart, to support someone. And love is infinitely intelligent. It's infinite. We are finite. And so the simplicity of it is discernment, because that's what we always want to know, especially if we're like, oh, I'm trying to help, or I don't know how to help, or wondering, how do I do this? What do I say? Who do I be? How do I be? And when you are obedient to love, when you are allowing love, then the intelligence of love becomes the discernment. And so when I didn't say anything to Chelsea, and I think this is really important, especially if someone's resonating or taking notes, it's not that not saying anything was like some smart thing that I did. It wasn't like a tool or technique. I was like, ooh, I'm going to do the give her space thing. I was actually being guided by love, in the intelligence of love itself. So I'm going to pause there before I say anything else.
Yeah. And what you're reminding me of is the power of the question, what would love do? So
Yes.
if we are in a moment with our beloved, like a practical way, or just in dating or relating with anyone, even beyond the space, but for the sake of this chapter of the podcast, we're specifically speaking on the healing of the man-woman relationship. If before we act, speak, say, do, choose, what would love do? And because we know that love serves the highest good of all, it's also going to serve us as well as them, because of this intelligence, this omniscient aspect that you speak of, which I so agree with. And sometimes we forget to do that. And then we say something from the ego or from fear or not feeling safe, instead of being like, okay, what does love need in this moment? And I agree. Like, when I even tune into the frequency of that situation, it's like if someone's in pain or in a moment of, it's not to say, hey, why are you drinking?
Yeah. Come on now. Stop drinking. You see, here's the thing, like, she's already doing that to herself. Do you know what I mean? And it's not working. You know what I mean? And I do want to share, like, when we finally did talk about it, and that was like the culmination of a miracle, really. But one more thing I want to say about love, to just try to make it as tangible as possible, or even just to understand what I mean by it's intelligent. Here's the thing, like, love is unconditional, right? And it's infinitely intelligent. And there's things that would be in best service to the other person, that might exist outside of our concept of self, or things that Oren, I wouldn't say that, but love's like, well, say this or don't speak. And so what we're confronted with and what can, I guess, block the presence of love's intelligence from moving through us is always us. And by us, I don't mean our true self with a capital S. I mean our identity, our concept of self, our ego mind is what disrupts that Wi-Fi signal from love that's saying, just hug her right now. Shut up. Do you know what I mean? Like you can learn that stuff in a book, and that can go so far and can be helpful, for sure. And with love, you have to truly be in unconditional service, because otherwise you're going to distort the frequency or the guidance that's coming from it, and it's always coming from the self. And it happens all the time in relationship. It happens to me, it happens to everyone. They're like, I know my partner, well, what are you really feeling? Well, I feel this, but I can't say that to him because the last time 10 times I did, it didn't go well. And it's like we make up these things. And my point is, it's that the things that we make up in our mind, and especially if they're emotionally charged, that's what would have us not hear the signal of love, the guidance of love, and therefore allow the power of love and the power of God to move through us and to aid us. It's like a partnership, aid us in fulfilling the service of the moment. And so me not saying anything to her in the way that she described it, that wasn't premeditated. That wasn't a technique I learned in a book. I was just being true to myself. And I could feel her, and I could feel the love in my heart. And that's just how I was guided. And so I can tell the miracle part of the story, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add a piece to help make it more practical, because what I feel you speaking to is being in devotion to love. And so being in devotion to love will bypass the ego mind and the pride and whatever, like a fear of being judged, fear of saying the wrong thing. It doesn't matter because I'm in service to love, and that's going to trump everything. So it does require multiple ego deaths and multiple of oh, I don't want to seem needy and have to go beyond your pride. I feel like in moments I've had to do that where I don't want to be the one to message, or I don't want to have to be but it doesn't matter because you're in service to love. May all that die, and it will die. And so, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, 1,000%. And, as a foundation for union and a really extraordinary relationship, and I'm describing my relationship as well, it's so powerful because we both have a devotion to love more than the relationship. And that is, it brings so much more power beyond our power into our relationship. So if we're navigating anything, if we're going through anything, because our devotion is first and foremost to love itself, right? Then we have the momentum and the power of that on our side always, because even if we're struggling or our ego is like me, because we're like, at the end of the day, we're still devoted to love, we're still devoted to truth more than we are the relationship, more than we are our own, self-preservation. It helps out tremendously.
And it requires both people to be at that level of consciousness and be willing to put aside the ego and the societal programming of how to be in a relationship and all of that. So yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement and feel like this is so important. So yeah, now I would love to hear about the miracle moment that happened.
Yeah, so Chelsea came to me, I would imagine, after a lot of internal struggle that she'd been going through, internal struggle, internal conflict. So she came to me and essentially asked for help. And let's see if I can put this into words, because just like love is hard to put into words. It's like she came to me and was like, babe, I've been having a struggle with alcohol. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she was like, and I know I need to stop, and I know I should, and da 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 da, and it basically like help, like, the two of us together are more powerful than one of us type of energy. Like, we can, maybe you can help me with this problem. And again, I want to land this accurately so it doesn't sound like a technique. It doesn't sound like I'm smart, right? Um,
I can't help but laugh. Yeah. I know who you're talking to, so I'm laughing.
yeah, I'm pretty smart, but I didn't make this up. I was just in the guidance of love. And so what I shared with her was, and I shared this through my being. I shared this through my presence, and with very few words. The spirit of it was, my love, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And
That's that unconditional.
that's the unconditional love. And what's happening there, this would be the explanation, not the technique, is that the shame that was allowed to come to the surface in the presence of love to be witnessed. Because one of the tricks of shame is to go back in your head and then try to outwit shame, try to heal shame, try to heal shame. Like, that's still the shame. And so it wasn't the words that I said, it was the emanation, it was the frequency of love behind the words when I said, it's okay. It's okay. And then that's when like things really started to move and to open and to soften. And it was just, it was love. It was miraculous. And then it wasn't until a few minutes later.
Yeah. I'm feeling into the frequency, and I'm even emotional and tearing, and because I can feel it. Like I even feel the transmission
Yeah.
of it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was miraculous, moving, powerful, as intimate as possible, because beneath the layers of the layers of the layers, it just is like, this little girl in there that's just like, I feel ashamed of myself. I've done wrong here. I'm wrong for this. And then not trying to just solve the the alcohol, or stopping drinking. And this is what I later then reflected to her more with like a precision of clarity of like my oracle reflection to her after the miracle really unfolded inside her. I said, the thing is that you're not struggling with stopping drinking. You're struggling with shame. You don't have a drinking problem. And so all of this will and this effort that you're putting towards, how can I stop? And not that she was going, I don't want to paint the picture like she was going crazy, but for her, like 10 years ago, she was like going a little bit crazy, but for her, she was like, it would be crazy for her. She was drinking a lot more than she normally would. Anyway, what I was sharing with her is that no amount of will, no amount of effort that you apply towards taking the action or making the decision to stop drinking is actually going to work, because the inertia, the real gravity, is this background unconscious energy of something's wrong with me. So on the surface, it looks like you're just trying to fix a situation, but because you're trying to fix yourself, and that's not truth, because that's the part of you saying that I'm wrong, not something's wrong, I'm wrong, which translates to I'm not worthy of love, right?
And now you're also speaking to one of the main reasons that people sabotage relationships. It's all unconscious patterning that is in that I'm not lovable or fear of rejection, or all of these things that can be a mix of shame and fear and abandonment wounds, and then these ultimately end up being why we sabotage relationships. And not everyone may be able to have the level of unconditional love that you were able to have for her in that moment. And so it is, I think this is a moment for listeners to really reflect on what's the work that's needed within ourselves to show up as greater love in relationship in the moment of meeting our partners, where we can see that they're in pain, and
Yeah.
not to make it about us, and not to, and that's again that devotion to love. And in that moment you could put everything aside to just be there for her story and love that little
Right.
part. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is the thing that she needed the most, which also is the most practical thing in terms of what she's trying to accomplish. The thing that she needs the most is the thing that was the furthest away from her prayer or from her asking.
Yeah, because she didn't have that awareness.
She didn't have that awareness. And so, when we don't have that awareness, even and this is what I meant by the trick of shame, even if we realize, oh, and I also feel ashamed, it's like it's this assumption that, okay, well then now I need to fix that. Do you know what I mean? And there's such a powerful distinction between trying to fix something and making it as an offering, letting it be witness, surrendering, or offering it. Because if we allow it to be present, if we allow ourselves to be witnessed and loved in it, then it can't stay in the dark, right? And so then what happened is, and it's hard to describe. I mean, there were tears, and like it was literally like something released from her. And then, I mean, long story short, didn't, she just stopped drinking. And it was, and it, wa- and it was, and it wasn't hard. You know what I mean? She just,
Yeah.
but it's I've heard this, a miracle described as a shift in perception, right? And in this case, to connect this to the power of love, the misperception is that I'm broken. The misperception is that something must be wrong with me. The misperception, the lie, is I'm not worthy of love because I'm doing this thing and it's bad, right? So then if you try to fix the bad thing and you're low key trying to fix yourself, that's the misperception. And that's why literally it was a miracle. Like, she was struggling, is like, how do I do this and trying this and trying that and nothing's working. And then literally in a moment of allowing the presence of love to penetrate her heart and to soften it and to relax back into the truth, which is, you're a child of God, you're beautiful, you're worthy, like there's nothing wrong with you. Just in that one moment, it literally changed everything. And she could tell the story better than I can, because I'm on this end of it. But
Yeah. Well,
so
that's the piece that's key for this episode, is that love piece and that unconditional love piece. And I really want to highlight something else that you did, was that you waited for her invitation to step in and offer any form of help. Because
yes,
relationship, especially if we're on the spiritual development path and the personal development path, we sometimes want to be our partner's coaches.
right,
Like, oh, this is this. Oh, this is happening. I'm going to tell you all my wisdom and everything I think and all
yes,
my
yes,
intuition. And it's
yes,
like, oh, polarity kill. Oh, like that's not love. Like, and the fact that you just held space as someone who loves someone would, unconditionally, without trying to coach them or advise them. And I think that's the other piece that was really powerful, because then her invitation
yes,
allowed her to then receive whatever reflections you would have to share. Because even if you said before, like, there's nothing wrong with you, you're lovable, I love you, she'd be like, no, right? She wouldn't even get to hear that. But she was so open then in that moment to receive.
yeah. That is definitely a really important and deep piece, and it's part of that discernment. And it's like, yeah, that is a big part of a big part of the story. One thing that happens sometimes in relationship, because Chelsea and I talk about like the oracle, right? The feminine oracle, the feminine wisdom and relationships. And the thing about it is that it takes a lot of honesty and self-awareness to have the discernment of knowing what to say and when to say. So then you're not coaching your quote unquote coaching your partner. And one of the things that's often innocently happens is that someone has an insight for their partner, they see something, they see a behavior, they see that it's not in their best interest, whatever, and they have the capacity to help, but what they might not see, this isn't always the case, but it's one of the hidden elements at play here of why their offering of love or service may not land well, is because if they're not honest, for example, that they feel unsafe. I see this happen with women a lot. We're like, oh, I'm trying to help him, or I see that X, Y, Z, or I said the thing to him, I shared with him my wisdom, and it just he can't hear it, or he didn't receive it, and then it turns out, and I'm thinking of a woman in particular I had a conversation with. I said, well, that's because you're not being honest with yourself about the fact that you don't feel safe in the presence of whatever you're witnessing in him. And so you don't have the power of influence. Your frequency, your energy is not unconditional because you have this low key side agenda of needing him to change, and so that you feel safe. And you're tricking yourself into thinking, oh, this is just purely an unconditional service to him, and I don't need anything. But it's like, you actually do need something. And that's why the transmission of whatever you're sharing with him, even if it's the gospel truth, it's not landing because you are very innocently being selfish in a way, because you have your own agenda baked into your service or your offering to him. So a lot of times that's where the backlash, or the when the energy cannot be received, it's because we're not actually in our heart, and therefore being guided by the intelligence of love and transmitting on the frequency band of love and truth. We're actually in some jumbled mix of truth, but we're not actually fully in truth because we're in our head.
Yeah.
And I'll throw one more bonus thing in there, is that one of the ways that you know that you're in your head to some degree is when you say, I tried. Like, love doesn't try. Like, even the fact that you say, I'm trying to help. I was like, well, trying is lying. You're already in your head. Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Like, even when we use words like think and try, and all those are of the mind.
Yeah.
So now this is actually perfectly leading into the second part of this, which is that fine line and discernment between when you're going to love someone into their highest potential, and or when you're loving someone too much to the point of abandoning yourself and your needs and what's and so this is interesting because I know that a lot of women, we even hear the extreme forms of this where women are, and it can be both ways, but on social media you can hear like narcissist, empath, and all of these things to describe, right? And to the point where some women are loving so unconditionally, like the extreme case is they're receiving abuse, like they're going through abuse and like, oh, he didn't mean it, but he's going, right? So that's like the most extreme form. And it's like, when is that line of discernment? And for me, I feel it's like, as a woman, a man, etc., you're loving, loving, loving. When it's not in highest service to you and your life is kind of dismantling and falling apart and you are not thriving, I feel like that's showing that it may be in highest service to you and the love of the relationship to take a step back, because it could be going into toxic patterning or revisiting karma, which oftentimes when people live karmic patterns, they can even make less money. Like, a lot of things can dry out because they're not living in that space of abundance, and even energy channels can get blocked, etc. So for me, I feel like you can love someone so much as long as it's not hurting you. But the moment you start hurting yourself, I feel like that's where you have to go and do your work and take care of yourself. Because if you can't show up in love for yourself, then how can you show up in love for the other person? So I'm curious what you would share about that.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that, when you find your way back to love and the intelligence of love, the answer is so simple. The journey, however, may not be that simple. I've said this quote before, that you don't lose yourself in divine union. You only become more of yourself, like your true self, right? It's just designed that way. But what I will add to that is, like, I'm not saying you will not lose yourself, because if you're courageous enough, if you're brave enough to enter a field of true union and intimacy, in all likelihood, you are going to lose yourself and you are going to go out of balance and you are going to, overstep boundaries but that's kind of part of being able to grow deeper into union. So that's the first thing I'll share. And so, looking at the complexity and the simplicity of it, it's like, I think that, when when things get out of balance, or I wouldn't say you could love too much, but what can happen is that you can abandon yourself and not love yourself and then create a distorted view of love. That can happen.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think it's important to maybe even use terminology that people know. It would be like a codependent type of love, which is not a true love. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the true unconditional love if you're in codependent love. So that could be like the flavor that we speak of,
yeah,
like a codependent kind of love.
like a codependent kind of love. And so if you're really honest and look, like, let's say you're loving, but then you're starting to feel a lack of being loved, a lack of getting your needs met, you're not thriving, like it seems like, oh, I'm over giving or over loving, then truth isn't really present, which means love is not fully flowing. So just, I have a fresh example because Chelsea and I were just coaching a couple, and they're moving through, we've got this spectrum that we talk about, going from crisis to repair to expansion to creation, and they were moving through crisis, and so there was just a lot going on. And I noticed that she repeatedly was saying, like, I'm holding space for him, and he's like, but he's not, and I get that he's overwhelmed or doesn't have the capacity, and so she's feeling this imbalance. And I asked her, I said, do you feel resentful? And she's like, no. Well, I mean, maybe a little bit. She's like, I just feel like, it's not fully being appreciated. I'm helping us get through these things. And this is, I think, going to be a good example here. The thing is that, yes, she was expressing and being in service to him and to the relationship from a place of love, but low key in the background, at the same time, there was also fear. So it wasn't completely love. And what I said is that there was something inside her that she was withholding, which is not loving herself, and then, like, blaming it on the relationship. And what it wound up being was, she was she was holding in this rage that she was feeling, subconsciously holding it in, and just being like, I'm here holding space, and I mean, it's fun and everything's great, but building up this resentment, because that's that suppression of fire. And so, like, with respect and compassion, I was like, your love is not as pure as you think it is, or it's not extending itself to include you, and that's why it's not happening. And so you have some sort of fear or belief that, oh, there's not space for my rage here, right? And so that she's already disconnected. So when she's showing up in the relationship going, I'm giving and giving and giving, but I'm not fully receiving, and what about me? And it's not, you see what I'm saying, it's getting out of balance. My point is that there's usually a dishonesty inside of the individual who loses themselves in union. Hey, or, oh, their boundaries get broke. There's usually a dishonesty, and I don't say that in a negative way. Like, there could be a lack of awareness, which means you're being dishonest with yourself, which means you're not fully loving yourself. And then that then creates a situation where you allow someone to cross your boundaries, where you are, putting yourself aside, but you're actually you're actually denying yourself, right, in the name of love. But my point is that's not love.
Yeah, and what you're speaking to really is, for true union to happen, it has to be a space where both people show up and play full out and participate fully and allow everything to be seen. And it's
Yes.
highest truth, highest love. And I'm going to say the highest truth, even if you don't like it, but it serves the relationship ultimately. So any form of lying to oneself or lying to the other or omission, even, like, it
Yes.
cannot work, because like you said, highest truth, highest love, they are connected. They are one and the same. And so
Right.
if there's any of that happening, ultimately it's like you're not loving fully, really. And
Exactly.
work. And so then it's like that could be a reason, if both people are not going to show up and play full out and honor agreements to fully say the truth, even if it's going to hurt,
Right.
then that's the moment to be like, discernment. This is not the right match. For whatever reason, we're not showing up fully to play with each other. And you can give it an opportunity, but then after a certain time, it's like you're hitting yourself on a wall, and it's like, okay, both
I think the simplicity and the importance, like when you say give it an opportunity, is like you have to really give it an opportunity. If you're holding back, then you're still going to be in doubt, and you'd be like, I tried everything, but like, did you? Did you really say everything? Did you really actually give the relationship with the other person an actual opportunity to meet you? Or did you go 90% or 96% and you're still holding back? And that this is one of the things what that can make it really difficult to discern, should I stay, should I go, is because we haven't actually put it all on the court. And we may be tricking ourselves, be like, I tried everything, but that doesn't mean that you've shared fully and truly without control and gave the other person a real opportunity to be like, okay, I'm gonna meet you here, or I'm not.
Absolutely. I am in total agreement. And so, as we are coming to our close inside the main episode, we're going to go into a bonus segment as well. We're going to dive deeper into some things. I invite you to share any last things you feel that are important, and that you just like, any last messages to our listeners in relationship. I know we covered a lot, but in relationship to love and that discernment of love, and yeah, and anything that would support the healing of the man-woman relationship for greater union.
Hmm. A couple of things come to mind. One is, I mean, it's an ever ongoing journey, like love and growing in love and expanding in love. And go for the whole thing. And what I mean by that is, if you can devote to love with an understanding that it's constantly going to invite you, you're going to go through deaths and rebirths. If you can go get on board fully with love, that's a good thing. And if you're I think that we should aim for what already is, meaning like we're already existing in a field of unconditional love, in a field of transparency. And ideally, in a relationship, we want to be able to be in that level of intimacy and to be fully seen, to be fully expressed. Basically, don't like sell yourself short with some belief or idea that you could be too much or that it could be enough. Like, just that's all fear. Just like go for the whole thing, to be in a relationship where you are fully loved, fully seen. Like, one of the ways you receive that is by actually going for it all, just saying like that's the only option. That's the energy that I'm speaking to. It's like that is the only option.
And yeah, and I'll end with just expanding on a word that you use that I think is super important. And I actually have a whole podcast episode on the nuances between honesty and transparency, etc. And so transparency is that frequency of going all in, which means you reveal even if you're not asked. And this builds the highest trust. So if something happens, you share. You don't wait to be asked. If you're feeling something, you share. You don't wait to be asked. And this is really that going all in kind of energy.
Yes. That I'm glad you brought that up, because, and here's why it it's important to do that. Because if you resonate with union, whenever you've experienced being in a field of transparency and the level of intimacy and even the heavenly glory of it, and you're like, ooh, I love this and I want this, I've arrived, I'm at home. If you're like, that's what you desire, then voluntarily opt in to transparency. Because here's the thing, you cannot be in a space of actual intimacy and hide. And that's a good thing. Like, so just embrace that. Because as soon as you decide to hide, it's like you create this tear in the field of the union. And even if you're like, everything's great, it's going to impact the relationship and it's going to impact you, period. That's it.
And when you're in true union, in my opinion, in my experience, you are psychically and telepathically connected.
100%.
Especially if you're doing this work and you're intuitive and as intuitive as you as intuitive, we feel everything anyway.
Exactly.
So
exactly. That's my point. That's my point.
And that's what creates the tension, because it's like, something's not right here.
Exactly.
And so we're really going all in, and go all in, go all in,
go all in. There it is.
And so, Oren, where can people find you? What are you up to now in terms of, if there's anything you want to directly, verbally have people find you at? And of course, we're going to include everything in the comment section for people to connect with you.
Yes. I'm most present on Instagram, the grams at Oren Harris, ORENHARRIS. My website is also orenharris.com. And then I'm Oren Harris on Facebook as well. Those are the three places that I have a presence online. And Instagram is probably the place to keep the most up to date with everything that I've got going on and all of my up to date content, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today with us, Oren. It's always a pleasure to reconnect and flow and talk and rip with you. And we'll see you all inside the bonus content and on Instagram. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.